Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today we have a special guest, someone who I just found out is a fan of the show from the very beginning, so I feel very humbled that you've been supporting us for over 4 years. We're joined by Javier Goyogana, Global HR Director at YPF. Welcome to the show, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It's I am humbled. Very nice to made it to the show.
I feel sorry for you that you had to listen to my voice for 4 years. I feel like that's torture on your commute.
Well, the contrary. It's what I said. It's an amazing show, and it's you have been creating a global community, which I very much appreciate.
I appreciate it. And to tell everyone a little bit more about you, your role, and also about YPF if they're not aware of the company.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'm a father of 2 girls. My wife is also from Argentina. I started as an engineer. I found a very smart HR vice president early in my career who convinced me to jump boats from working in logistics to start trying my career in HR. After a few years in Argentina, I went to the US, lived in Chicago for 2 years, and then in London for 10 years, jumping from company to company, always trying to chasing the big new project with bigger companies like Shell or Rio Tinto. And about 7 years ago, there was an opportunity to come to Argentina and to join YPF. YPF is the biggest oil and gas company in Argentina, the biggest player outside US in shale oil, which is the latest fad in oil. So it's a big bet for the country, for the impact that YPF can have in the region. It's amazing. If we manage to develop all our assets in time, and at the same time, we are exploring all the new renewable energies, hydrogen, lithium. We have an own, fully owned company, YPF Energy, that looks after all the renewables. So it's a very interesting time to be in this energy industry, which keeps moving.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of disruption, right, in your own industry over the past sort of 10 years.
Absolutely. And it's only accelerating. So we are in an exponential change, singularity kind of exponential change. That's every year. Things happen twice as fast as last year. Mm-hmm. So now I just move jobs. I'm looking after HR for upstream, all the conventional assets in upstream, and the new businesses in gas and energy, which are the ones that are growing into the future. So interesting to see and help the company transition from the old energy to the new energy. The only thing is for sure it's that the world is going to need energy to keep moving.
Yeah.
We have to get it cleaner, cheaper, and in a more sustainable way. So it's very interesting.
You're leading 2 transformations, one internally, right, which you just mentioned, but also you're leading this transition to this new way of working. So that must be quite tough, balancing both.
Yeah, well, that was one of the excitements for me to come back to Argentina and help a very established company like YPF, very, if you want, all economy, kind of traditional company culture, to transition into new ways of working. We've been working on that for about over 5 or 6 years. So when the pandemic hit us last year, we were pretty much ready. So on a Friday, everybody went home. On Monday, everybody reconnected from home. So everybody was, all processes were fully digitalized. Everybody had the equipment at home, the bandwidth to do work. So that was pretty amazing. Very unexpected, because it has been an uphill battle in changing, helping especially senior leaders change their mindset.
Especially in a traditional industry, right? Especially in very traditional oil and gas,
absolutely
industry.
Absolutely, where people are used to have their teams around them, so they feel confident that if there's something needed, they can just shout the order, or let's tackle this, and everybody drop everything at the moment and start working on the new thing. So you have this need for physical proximity. That was the mindset. What we have found out is that you don't need to be sitting in the same room to do exactly the same, to have the same agility to shift priorities and to react to changing conditions.
Yeah.
So it has been a very nice journey, and compared to what I've seen in the UK, for instance, we have been pretty much behind the curve. But with the pandemic, I would say we'd catch up. It was like we made a huge leap into the future.
Mm-hmm. No, so it's definitely benefited you from that perspective, right?
Well, I mean, it was obviously a very unfortunate situation for everybody, and many families have lost members so it has been a painful period. But amid that, I think there has been the response from people, from communities, from companies and governments have helped us refocus, have helped managers and leaders to be closer to the teams. So things that we have been trying to achieve for many years from HR, to make leaders more open, more closer, more humanize the companies, humanize organizations. I think such a tragedy like the almost 2 years COVID helped that to happen. And I heard it also in some of your podcasts. We are all talking about the Great Awakening now. And that's very true. I mean, and that's what you have seen even before the COVID. There has been a trend, was growing slowly, catching up momentum. But with the COVID, it's just went through the roof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Because within the Great Awakening, the Great Reckoning, employees are demanding more support from their organizations. How are you and the team responding to this critical moment?
First, I mean, it was a journey for us. First, we had to do it within our team as leaders of our environment, and as HR professionals within our team. We needed to shift a little bit the way we worked and make sure that there was space to discuss how everybody's coping, what are the needs, what's going on in our lives, in our families. So just to bring, the human to work. Having built that first step, we quickly moved to just share the same with the community, the businesses we work with, and try to create instances where leaders can expose themselves, have, if the town hall like meetings virtual last year. So at the beginning it was a bit difficult, but once they tried once or twice, even very senior leaders were so happy that they kept on moving, and they were demanding, when are we doing the next edition? And they come out with their old funky names. So it was very, very nice to see how an idea we have to push a little bit in the beginning, very quickly went through the tipping point and got adopted, because there was a really value perceived by the people and by the leaders from this closer connection. Mm-hmm. So that was one area in terms of leadership behaviors. We had to instill also quite a different channels for communication between all employees and contractors with the company. So the key thing, if you want, or the key strategy was to build different opportunities for dialogue, especially now that we're coming back to the office. It's not very clear still how we are going to end up. We know it's not going to be like before the COVID, but we're still in conversation and negotiations with different teams. Some teams can work virtually all day, every day. Some teams, they make sense to come and join together for a meeting, a brainstorming, etc. But it's a one-to-one conversation or team-by-team conversation. So I think the key driver is still for us to create these channels of communication or negotiation between individuals and the teams, individuals and the company.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree. I suppose the next step after that, then step 3 would almost be, but how do you then take that feedback and action it? Because there's nothing worse from an employee's perspective to have those conversations, give that feedback and not see anything change. How did you pinpoint where you should prioritize resources? Because there's so much, right? There's only so much you can do.
This conversation has been to make sure that leaders and senior leaders are part of the conversation. So it's not just requesting for feedback, but more inviting everybody to sit at the table and have a conversation and identify which problems need to be addressed. So a few years back, we also started experimenting with agile teams. So small teams that get together for a very short period of time with sprints to create baby steps that can drive a bigger change in the long run. So, and we have been piloting for very different areas, also for how we are defining how we want to work in the new hybrid world. Mm-hmm. So that has been part of the key change. I mean, not just sitting, asking for feedback and then see what we do about it, but I ask you for your feedback and I invite you to, let's do something about it. What do you want to be part of this agile cell? We are going to be tackling this specific issue. So that's more the dynamic. And sometimes, for instance, this I talked before about these household meetings for senior leaders to get together with the whole function or the whole business. It was not designed by the comms people. Very often it was a small cell of different employees and the comms people crafting together what they were going to do, what are the key messages, who they were going to invite, how they were going to measure the impact. So it's just inviting people to be part of the change.
I love that. And I love that the agile element, because you're able to pilot, right, and move quickly and start testing some of these ideas and understanding whether it's going to work, whether it's not. But again, you can try multiple things at the same time, as opposed to saying we have to commit all of our resources to this one thing over here, and involving them more importantly, rather than assuming you know what your employees want, which is what a lot of companies do, including those individuals in the conversation, in the project as well.
Absolutely. Most of my career, I've been always, if you want, like an internal entrepreneur, the intrapreneur, or the contrarian, trying to push things, change against all odds. I remember in the 90s, similar change with, if you want, with the attires. In the 90s, everybody would wear a tie and a suit. And I started piloting the casual Fridays, it was back then, and then all week Fridays, unless you're meeting with a client and so on. And now see each other here. Well, I'm pretty smarter, but I could be wearing a t-shirt like as you do, and that's normal. So that has been a big shift. But very often the shift is bottom up. You try to get people on board who are keen on the change, invite them to create a community, as you're doing with HR. The same happens within companies, and the same I did with Agile. Agile in YPF was not a top-down initiative, or the flexible working, the hybrid ways of working. 5 years ago, when I started with the movement, because it was more of a movement, I started recruiting different managers, different senior managers for the dispersed areas of the company who were keen on trying to give more flexibility to the teams. So we started writing different pilots. We bundle them together when we have one data from after running the different pilots for a year. seeing that there was no impact on productivity, the morale went up, turnaround went down. So all the KPIs were good. So that's when I bundled them and we took it to senior management. Even then, senior management was not very happy. So we kept on launching new pilots until the whole company was a pilot. So
they have to give in at that point. But that you made a good point. Absolutely. But it's not easy, right? It's not easy to do that. You have to be very persistent, and as you said, as a HR leader, you have to constantly be reaching out and building those relationships with leaders across the business, right? And piloting, proving the concept, and then pitching it back to the leadership team.
Absolutely, but I think that's the edge of the HR professional. You should be very close to people. Doesn't mean I have to talk to the 20,000 employees. There are things that you can get through analytics, but you have to have a very good sense of the different pockets of populations, different people, different kind of employees, and reach out, talk to them, and pilot things, because that's a part of creating the conversation. That's where you get a lot of information and you find out where the energy is.
Yeah.
But the key thing is if you don't do it like that, it's very difficult to get real change. I mean, people who holds the power tends to want to maintain the status quo. So it's real change from the top is very rare. I mean, by the time a senior leader or the board of a company says we need to change, either
it's too late.
External pressures that's so huge they cannot resist anymore, or it's a proven concept.
Or a pandemic.
A pandemic, yeah. That could be the external threat. I mean, it's so big you cannot do something different.
Yeah. You talk about level 5 leadership. Can you share more about that with people, what that is?
Yeah, so the whole continuum goes from all these things we were talking about is in the end creating a more humanized environment, more humanized organization where and there's my belief, I don't have a scientific proof, but my belief is the end game, the end result is much better when you give people an opportunity to follow their energy, have the ability to make choices in how they do work, what they wear when they come to the office, be able to speak up. If you give more people the opportunity to make a decision, everybody is going to be better off. So the water level rises and we all rise. I mean, and that's basically what happened with the economy. I mean, the old economy, industrial economy, was very centralized. So we were all soldiers, all cogs in the big machine.
And we all have to do the 9 to 5,
absolutely,
which was invented in the Industrial Revolution, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, you had to comply. That compliance was keen. Homogeneity, I mean, everybody looked the same and everybody does exactly the same. 150 years ago, things started moving. From the last 50 years, with the knowledge economy, things changed dramatically. But we still operating, and all companies look pretty much like the companies 200 years ago. So we need to change that because the new knowledge economy calls for decentralization. So given that, that's my jump of faith that I said before. In a decentralized economy, I think that we're better off when everybody can make a decision and follow the passions, their energies. To do that, it's very difficult unless you do it with Jim Collins calls level 5 leadership in his Good to Great book, which is it's a leader that's not only a very competent individual, a team player, a good manager of teams, a good business manager, but also has a different quality in terms of humility and
empathy.
Empathy and the will to succeed. But it's not their own personal success. It's the community, the company, the enterprise success, because they understand that if the level of the water rises, we all float higher. So that's the I think more and more we need to help those kind of leaders to be successful. That's part of what I'm doing these days. I mean, I'm one of my clients. If you say one of I am a business partner to one such leader, and I said, I was talking to him last night. I said, mate, I want you to be successful. It's the best thing that can happen, not for you, but for the company, for the people in the company, and for everybody around YPF, because we have a spill-off effect to see good people with high ethics who really care for the people. And they're also obviously very successful in the professional arena, but to create the environment around them to be successful. Yeah. So, and that's why it's a great book from Jim Collins. It's more relevant than ever in terms of how can we help each other become more of a level 5 leader.
It shouldn't be an us and them mentality.
That's what it's very difficult. Very interesting. I mean, talking about the Great Awakening, why it's Yuval Harari and his books so popular everywhere, because it's like us looking at ourselves as humans and say, okay, the human animal side in me always going to make me make decisions about us and them. Perhaps we are at that point in time in history where we have to start trying different mental models because the current mental models are very limiting in a way. Yeah. And I think HR has a space to play there. I mean, that's why I'm still in HR after so many years.
Before we wrap up, I want to jump into our quick fire round. You probably know what's coming now because you listen to the show quite a lot. So we're going to jump in 30 seconds for each question. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. How would your friends and family describe what you do for a living?
After the pandemic, my family would describe it as I am on the phone all the time, in meetings, talking to people, trying to make them feel better about what they're doing and help them work better.
Yeah. What are your hobbies and passions outside of the office?
Yeah, this another book that changed my vision a few years ago about my personal life. It's a 100-year life by Linda Gratton and Andrew Scott. And they talk about, hey, your life is going to be longer than you expect. You better get ready. As part of that, I started exercising quite a lot. I lost 3 stones. I was much bigger. I'm running and working out. So that's one big thing, as well as listening to podcasts. I think it's mind expanding. I'm a very curious person. So curiosity is if you want, it's my one of the main themes in my life.
Yeah, well, you need that in HR to be successful.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere, to be honest, yeah. What legacy do you want to leave behind for your kids?
Really, it's this sense of purpose. We cannot escape our destiny, but we can change how we live it. And I think there's so much wisdom in old traditions like Buddhism or meditation that help you redefine how you live your destiny. That's really my main project in life, to give that sense to my daughters and make sure that we spill it over.
That's great. HR's, this role is not always easy. Have you ever considered quitting? And if so, why?
Not quitting. I have a defect. I'm the eternal optimism. So I always think things are going to turn out better. And I have a few occasions where I thought about not quitting, but just changing or jump into another boat. And I think there is something about my personal growth in the last 10 years about just saying, okay, we have a challenge here. Let's not avoid the challenge. Let's go and fight it and dive into it and see what happens. Mm-hmm. I don't think HR is that difficult. I mean, can be very rewarding because you can see the impact on people if it's not immediate, in the mid term. So I don't feel HR is difficult all the way around. I think I find it one of the most rewarding occupations.
Or you're in the right place. What's the biggest investment that you've made in yourself in your career?
When I came to YPF, I found a completely different company from what I expected. I said traditional, slow moving, very frustrating for me. I was coming from global leaders like Shell or Rio Tinto and IBM, Procter and Gamble. So I was used to a different kind of conversations, different pace of change. So first couple of years here was having fun. After the honeymoon, I hit the wall and said, wow, I'm never going to be able to change this. And that was the moment of reckoning, and I was very frustrated at the time. And that was going back to the previous question. That was when I thought about, should I move to another company? And I decided, no, let's fight it. And I went in the hard way. And I think that has been the most rewarding learning experience, because that forced me to change so many aspects of myself, professionally and personally. How I see myself, how I interact with others, how I try to, again, get closer to what I would like to be as a leader, leaders. It's just make sure that I do better for the rest.
It's in those hard, difficult moments that you learn the most, right? And it doesn't feel that way at the time because it's stressful and difficult, but the growth that comes out of those difficult times is the most valuable. If you could choose one person that's had the biggest impact on your career, who would that be?
That's that very first HR vice president that convinced me to join HR. That was back in Procter and Gamble in the 90s, and he's very smart guy. Were many things along our relationship, and after I left P&G.
Is he still working? Is he still around, or is he retired now?
No, he retired.
Oh, he's okay. Yeah.
And his son was studying in London when I was there, so a couple of times we met there as well after he retired. So no, it's good. I was very lucky to have at least many more than one, but at least one big beacon in terms of the professional direction. To imagine what you can achieve from HR. Mm-hmm. So he has been and he still is a big inspiration for me.
What was his name?
Alfredo Baudet.
Give him a shout out.
He's Venezuelan.
Good shout out for him. Nice. Yeah. And last question, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to the leaders of tomorrow? I
think one of the biggest lessons it took me many years to understand completely. I'm not sure if it's completely, but to grasp was the change the either or for and. Very often when you're deciding to something, either you go for growth or profitability. You go for resolving the issue or for maintaining the long-term relationship. And that's the easy way out. If you go for the and, grow and be profitable. Resolve the issue and maintain a good personal relationship with those involved. It's a bit more difficult. It takes you more time and energy. But if you like, you have two big Venn diagrams. If you find the sweet spot where you can find a solution that meets both or more conditions, you're going to end up in such a much better space later on. The decisions are much better in quality and sustainability. Obviously, that applies to HR and other businesses, but I think in the HR is particularly critical, because what I see everybody, very young people in HR, making a decision. What do I do? I look after the employee or the company. It's not or. You have to do both. So it takes more time. do the homework, but I think the payoff is huge.
I love that. That's great advice. I've never heard someone articulate it that way, but super interesting and makes so much sense. But look, last thing before you go, where can people connect with you if they want to say hi and reach out?
LinkedIn is the best way.
Amazing. Well, look, Javier, firstly, thank you for all your support from the very, very beginning of when we started this show. It means a lot to me to have someone who has been listening to the show since I started it in my bedroom many years ago, and is now a guest on the show. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks to you.
I mean, again, congratulations. I mean, you are creating a community that's, I think, it's very important for HR. We keep talking about Dave Ulrich, who invented the business partnering role and HR back in the 90s, but things like your podcast, I think it's what are going to take us further into the future. So has been my honor. Thank you.
All right, no, we'll have a deal. Let's do a deal. If you keep listening, I'll keep recording. Is that a deal? Deal. Good. See you later. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.